What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Fringe. I know we're talking about Alberta separation a lot. It's going to continue because it's hot. It's a hot topic. You guys are interested in it. I'm interested in it. Today, I got to talk about recall legislation. Now, Danielle Smith has shot herself in the back, possibly, by introducing a lower threshold for recall legislation and to essentially put a referendum in place. Danielle Smith, of course, rapidly reducing the number of signatures required in order to trigger a ballot so that those who wanted a referendum, those who were seeking to get away from the tyrannical boot of the government's foot on their neck, then essentially they could find an easier pathway. And that'll get explained in the article I'm about to read. But now on the back end, a little bit of backfire coming back, a little bit of karma coming Danielle Smith's ways from her haters. Apparently now 3 UCP MLAs are now in danger of being recalled. They could lose their seats, thus triggering an early election in the province to remove Danielle Smith from office, essentially, and install Nahid Nenshit, as we've talked about on this channel several times. Again, not a big fan of him, as you can tell. Let's take a look at what's going on with Danielle, because this is trouble. While people on social media were complaining, by the way, that we had the right, notice how this is, again, the ever so tolerant left, as they sit and say, you can't leave Canada, you can't have a referendum, you can't ask a question on a ballot, you can't do any of those things. It belongs to First Nations, it belongs to Canada, you can't leave. Well, now all of a sudden they've triggered their own little recall movement. And of course, that's perfectly legal, and they're allowed to do those things because, well, it fits their stupid narrative. But Calgarians apparently now rally to recall 3 UCP MLAs as Alberta Resistance movement launches in 4 cities. I've told you before, this is going to keep piling up. The infighting is only going to get bigger and larger as time goes on towards a question on a ballot. I have to hand it to these folks. If anything, it's only going to stoke the fires for separation even further. Calgary is a very conservative city, but they've seen over the last federal election in particular, a lot of liberal voters that have moved their way into the city that try to fart huff and tell them that, hey, we got to start adopting liberal policies. Real Calgarians don't want that. I lived in Calgary for 30 years. I can tell you right now, they hate their Marxist mayor. They hate everything about what's going on with liberals in Calgary. They want nothing to do with it. The only reason Calistani installed mayors win their seats in Calgary is because the migrant vote. But there's a little bit of a catch-22 to what's happening here. Let's get into the article. It says a Calgary group held a rally at City Hall on Saturday in Calgary with the hopes of recalling 3 UCP party MLAs so they can trigger an early provincial election. Jenny Yamiri, who is part of the Recall for Change movement in Calgary, said her group is seeking people to sign a petition to meet the threshold required to recall MLAs in Alberta. Now, keep in mind, with the recall legislation, you only get one shot at this. If you don't meet the threshold, it's over. And even if you meet the threshold, you go to the polls, they would put the recall legislation in place. If that person were voted in again in a by-election, then of course, well, that just puts a stop to everything and things would stay the same. She puts in quotes, they just changed the rules. But we also understand that we need 60% of the number of people that voted in the 2023 election to sign a petition. So I say, that I want to recall my MLA. According to Alberta Resistance, which organized Saturday's rallies in Calgary, Edmonton, Lethbridge, and Medicine Hat, the actual percentage of signatures required to recall an MLA in the province is 40%. If approved, the applicant or applicants have 60 days to gather signatures from 40% of eligible voters in that constituency, it said. If the petition is successful, a recall vote must occur. If the recall vote is successful, the official ceases to hold office and a by-election must be held. Jeremy also said a number of Albertans do not feel heard by the provincial government. Again, these are the guys who are, oh, we don't want to separate, we don't care. We don't like that you have free speech, we just want to exercise ours. The UCP is not looking after us, she said. They're not listening to us. They're not meeting with us. They're making decisions that are not in the best interest of Albertans. What are you talking about? The best interest for Albertans is to get the hell away from Ottawa. I don't understand what they're saying here. It says they're making decisions that are in the best interest of private interests, not related to the people of Alberta, she added. It's clear in every angle. We're here talking about healthcare, education, energy, environment, people, marginalized communities. Doesn't this just tell you where they stand on everything, where they're coming from? It doesn't matter what way you look at it, they're moving in the wrong direction. We need to change that now. Later is too late. What's funny about this whole thing is Alberta Resistance, and I'll be looking into them, by the way. I want to see if they're funded by any outside interest groups or any outside entities. It'll be interesting to see where they come from, or if that's just what they're calling themselves, if it's just a bunch of lunatic Karens hanging out in a shed in someone's backyard saying, we need to change the province. I don't know. We'll see. But it says here, closely lost ridings. As far as which MLAs, as the organization plans to target for recall, Jeremy said that we're targeting the constituencies that were closely lost. So again, they're being very strategic. And I talked about this after the last election where I said Alberta faces a very dangerous pivoting point right now once Naheed Nenshit entered the fray. When you looked at those ridings throughout that provincial election, and I'll go over those in another video, some of them were very slim. We're talking a couple hundred votes. So what this is provincial electoral warfare to try and trigger an election, which hopefully would ultimately fail, granting Danielle Smith another 4-year mandate. It says here, Calgary Bow is the area that I'm in, she said, and we're doing Calgary Northwest. Again, very, we'll say SJW, social justice warrior, left-leaning areas of Calgary. Again, those areas are strategically, again, where they could get a possibility of those signatures. It says in 2023 provincial election in Calgary Bow, Dimitri Nicolade, won by 385 votes over the NDP candidate Drew Farrell. Drew Farrell, if you don't know, if you're not from Calgary, she's like the human version of cancer. She's terrible. In Calgary Northwest, UCP candidate Rajan Sawhney, won 149 votes over NDP candidate Michael Lisboa Smith. Jeremy, running as an Alberta Party candidate in Calgary Northwest, finished third, receiving 777 votes. So again, she's triggering this. Again, I'm questionable as to if she ran for the Alberta Party. Who was funding her? Who was she tied to? What special interest groups is she tied to? Who's pushing for this? I'll find out, and we'll do that in another video. She also said ridings represented by UCP cabinet ministers and Premier Danielle Smith might be among those targeted. I love that they use the word targeted. Like they sound like, yeah, we're taking them out. Fort McMurray, represented by Energy Minister Brian Jean, is something that I would be curious to see if the residents are still happy with and what they're getting there, she said. Adriana LaGrange, who represents Red Deer North, with the healthcare scandal. This is something that we would like to get people behind, she added. And then obviously our premier, if we could get the people of Medicine Hat to stand up and say that this government is being led the wrong way, that would be huge. So again, this is this is the difference between people wanting to separate from the federal government and people who want to just recall and kick them out because they don't like who's in power. As I've said many times, when you talk about Alberta separation, this has been going on for decades. This discussion has been going on for decades. People are at the point they're tired. They've had enough. It isn't about an election loss. A lot of people think it is. It has nothing to do with a federal election loss or we're taking our ball and going home. It's just at the point that Albertans are saying, look, if we're ever going to do it, now's probably the time. People are the most worn out. People are scared about their futures. Now's the time to trigger that. This is... we don't like who's in charge, so we're just going to screw them over and ensure that, we can change the rankings. I'm curious if this Jeremy woman is going to run for the Alberta Party again, should they trigger another election. Again, seems to me like a conflict of interest. At least if she's in charge of this outfit to try and trigger another election. Said Saturday's rally was more of a meet and greet. and informational gathering, as the new organization has not formally created a petition yet, Jeremy said. We have a 90-day window once we trigger that, she said. Right now, we're just building interest and momentum and volunteership. But once we actually take this or get this form through the government, then we have 90 days to execute a recall. Well, what would be really funny if people really wanted to combat this is go into Danielle Smith's riding, go into these ridings mentioned, go into Calgary Bow, go into any of these other areas, and pay the small application fee to trigger a recall yourselves and just don't get any signatures. Because if the recall legislation fails, it can't be done again. So that would actually be a smart form of attack if you wanted to shut these people up, is for private citizens to go and get these recall notices filled out and just sit on them. These guys would have to scramble to try and get signatures. That's also playing dirty. I know people are going to say, oh, Fringe, you're interfering with democracy again. But really, are we? Are we really? This isn't democracy. This is again, electoral warfare at this point. It says here, Mount Royal University political scientist Keith Brownsley said the process of recalling an MLA was fairly straightforward if a group can meet the verified signature threshold. They'll have to consult with Elections Alberta. And if they get this 60%, they will have to present this to Elections Alberta, and away we go, he says. Then the Elections Alberta team will have to verify the signatures, do all sorts of things, and then Elections Alberta will declare at that point under the legislation that the MLA has been recalled. Brownsy said that this would trigger a by-election in the specific riding, but the way the numbers look at the moment, getting a trio of UCP MLAs recalled could trigger the fall of the provincial government as well. So again, we're talking about, is it really bad if people went and got these petitions started and just sat on them? This is lunacy. The arithmetic here is fairly simple, he said. UCP MLA Peter Guthrie is gone. Another MLA, Lesser Slave Lake, MLA Scott Sinclair has been tossed out of caucus or has left, and Nathan Cooper's gone, of course. Losing 3 more may bring them to the point where they do not have a majority and they could be defeated in the legislature on a vote of confidence, he says. A petition was launched in 1937 to recall Bill Aberhart in his riding of Okotoks High River. The good voters of Okotoks did not believe that Aberhart was representing them properly and began a recall, Brownsy said, and the legislature at that point rescinded, got rid of the recall legislation. Aberhart survived, switched ridings, and remained premier until 1943. It says here that CTV News also, keep in mind, they're the ones putting this article out. They reached out to the Premier's office for comment. Probably won't get one. I mean, it's really silly when we come down to it that people are mad that Albertans have been given a voice by Alberta Premier Danielle Smith when it comes to the future of Alberta, the prosperity of Alberta. The ability to say, when is enough enough? When do we stop with the transfer payments? When do we start talking about moving forward with our own prosperity and making life more affordable and better living for actual Albertans? And now you've got a group of Karens who essentially want to flip it on its head because they don't like that we have that freedom. This is again where I say it's so funny to watch the Hippocratic left say, we don't want you to have all these things, but since they're there, we're going to manipulate them, and that makes it okay. And while people say, hey, Fringe, you are infringing on democratic processes by suggesting that people go and get these petitions started themselves and sit on them, well, if you really think there isn't going to be any shenanigans from the other side of the field when it comes time to ask the question on a referendum vote, think again. Like I said, this is political, it's political warfare at this point. No one's going to be fighting fair. Everyone's going to be fighting dirty. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. If it's your first time here, I hope this video has earned your subscription. Make sure as you're hitting that subscribe button, you turn on your bell for notifications. Join me live here on the channel each and every Friday night for Friday Night Fringe, our live streaming show weekly, where I'm joined by the beautiful Mrs. Fringe as we talk about everything that happened this week in politics, everything we know that's coming up in the week ahead, as well as your Q&A inside the live chats. I look forward to chatting with you each and every week, but I most importantly look forward to hearing what you have to say this Friday, starting at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, here on the channel this Friday night, as well as every Friday night. With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll catch you on the next one.